Video game collecting used to be a niche hobby. Quite a few of us have been at this game collecting thing for many years. Nowadays, so many more people have joined us in this hobby. It's truly a wonderful thing to be able to share our love of games and our collections with so many people. Today, I have invited 6 content creator friends to join me in sharing the most impressive and expensive games in our collections. Let's get into it.
What's going on, guys? Up in Nimbus here. Being a Nintendo collector myself, there is a lot of rare and expensive games in my own collection which I've come across over the many years. However, I could only choose one game from my collection, and that is none other than Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64. The story within the original Paper Mario is pretty simple. Bowser once again kidnaps Princess Peach, but this time he steals the legendary Star Rod from the Star Spirits up in Star Haven. And with this newly found power, he descends upon the Mushroom Kingdom, causes havoc, kidnaps Princess Peach, and takes her back up into the sky with him. And it's up to you as Mario to go save Princess Peach, reclaim the Star Rod, and defeat Bowser once again. Now, even though the story in Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 is very basic and simple, it is honestly one of the most beautiful and magical Mario RPG games that are out there. And I would love to see a remake of this game like they did with the Thousand Year Door. I was very fortunate enough to get this game back in 2020, right before the pandemic struck. And at the time, I had found Paper Mario for the 64 for about $200 AUD on Facebook Marketplace. And luckily, when I picked it up, the game was in very good condition. And at the time, I thought $200 AUD was very expensive for the game. However, looking at the current going prices 4 years later, this game has skyrocketed tremendously in value. Just for the cartridge alone, it is sitting around $500 AUD right now. This game has gone up another $300 since I initially purchased it 4 years ago. I am very grateful that I picked it up back then and not today. And if you want to know the closed-in box prices, people are trying to sell this game for about $1,200 AUD. No matter how much I love my Paper Mario games, I am not spending over $1,000. Jay, thank you so much for inviting me on this collaboration of yours, and as always, I look forward to everybody else's choice within this video. So until the next time, everybody, Up in Nimbus is signing off.
Hi everybody, Scorpio Caesar here from the Caesar Arcade. Thank you, Jay, once again for inviting me to be part of the Cold Nights once again. And when it comes to most expensive game in my collection, I look around me, there's a ton of games here. Games ranging in price, high and low, but there's one that takes the absolute cake, and it goes for around $800 to over $1,000 on the aftermarket, and that is Magic Knight Rayearth on the Sega Saturn. Now, Magic Knight Rayearth is a JRPG developed by Working Designs, and it was the last North American release for Sega's 5th generation console. And I'm so lucky to have this in my collection. It is a beautiful game. I love the holofoil manual that it has. The back artwork is also holofoil, and it also includes the stickers. And the stickers can drive up the price for this one even more. It is insane just how expensive this game is. It is probably the most expensive Sega Saturn game next to Panzer Dragoon Saga. I have no one to thank but my wife and her friend BB for teaming up to get this game for me for Christmas. It was a hell of a surprise that I did not expect, but my wife is a big Magic Knight Rayearth fan, so she decided that it was time for me to have the Holy Grail in my collection. So I'm looking forward to seeing some other collaborators in today's video and seeing what their pick for most expensive game in their collection. Anyways, thank you for having me on, Jay. I really do appreciate you. We're gonna have to get some protection for this one.
Hi everyone, I'm Miss Mandia. Now, the most expensive game I have in my collection is the Pokewalker edition of Pokemon Soul Silver for the Nintendo DS.
Soul Silver was released in 2009 in Japan and 2010 in the West, alongside its sister game, Heart Gold. They are remakes of the second generation Pokemon games Gold and Silver, which came out on the Game Boy Color. One of the really cool things about these remakes is that they included a feature that would allow you to take one of your Pokemon out of the game and into the real world, using the Pokewalker accessory. The idea was that you would clip your Pokewalker to your belt or pocket, and the built-in pedometer would record the number of steps you take throughout the day. And your Pokemon would get experience points based on how many steps you got in. And you could do other fun things like find items, catch Pokemon, and even interact with other Pokewalker users. Now, the wonderful thing about the Pokewalker was that there was one packaged with every standard retail version of the game. The reason I made a distinction here is because the aftermarket price of the game is heavily influenced by whether or not it still includes the Pokewalker and the game's holographic outer box. At the moment, the game itself is valued at about 170 USD, while a complete copy with the Pokewalker and the box averages around 280, with similar prices for the Heart Gold version. When I realized how expensive these games had gotten, I was shocked. It always saddens me to see my favorite DS games skyrocket in price because, 1, I want them to be available for people to play, and 2, it's a little confronting to watch the DS era slip further and further into the past. I still remember the day that I walked into Toys R Us and purchased my original copy of Heart Gold for 45 AUD, and the fact that that was 14 years ago now and this game has become one of the most expensive on the system is honestly terrifying. To this day, they are still my favorite Pokemon games. I'm very fortunate to have both Soul Silver and Heart Gold, and they are pieces of my collection that I will always cherish. Thank you, Jay, for having me on the channel today and giving me the chance to talk about these wonderful games.
Hey friends, it's Brandon from Just the Gems. Jay, thanks for having me on to talk about the most valuable game in my collection, which is Haunting Ground. Actually, I think this is the second time I've been on your channel talking about Haunting Ground, and I promise I've played other games, even other horror games, but look. Haunting Ground is part of that trifecta of super rare and super expensive horror games on the PlayStation 2, and while I can't speak for the other two games, I can tell you that Haunting Ground isn't just valuable, it's a really freaking fantastic game. You're a teenage girl trapped in a gigantic castle being pursued by horrifying stalkers, which is already a recipe for intensity, right? But on top of that, you can't even hide behind load screens in this game because somehow the wizards at Capcom managed to get this entire game to stream from memory. I have no earthly idea how they pulled this off, but after the game loads up, you won't see any more loading screens. This means that a chase isn't bound to just one specific area. You've actually got to outsmart the bad guys. But everything here, the atmosphere, the sound design, the graphics, man, the PS2 really pushed some impressive graphics, huh? This game is an awesome experience, and it sucks that it's so hard to come by. I picked my copy up at a GameStop, believe it or not, like five and a half years ago for $100, and at the time it was worth at least $300. So I knew I was getting a fantastic deal, and I absolutely could not turn it down. It was just a weird fluke of a coincidence that I happened to stop in, and I'm really, really glad I did.
Hey, it's Fox from Inferno Fox Gaming. Huge thanks to Jay from Cold Knights Gaming for having me on to discuss the most expensive game that I have in my video game collection. I've got a number of games in said collection that are pretty up there in value, like the Dragon Quest DS games and Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the PS1, as well as the Super Nintendo North American version of Chrono Trigger. But surprisingly, the most expensive one that I have is one of my newer ones, and that is the North American ESRB version of the Switch game Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. One big difference between this and any copy that you snag on PlayAsia right now is, again, this little ESRB tag right here on the box. Yet it is this difference that makes it so expensive. As of late May, and because this is unopened, and more importantly, it also came with the full collector's edition. All of it has, at pricecharting.com, a value of $656. And the crazy thing is, the PS4 version of this is worth more than double. And why, oh why, is this game so expensive? Square Enix in their prowess and business mastery, decided to put up these North American versions of the game only for sale on their website with a very, very, very limited quantity and for sale at the middle of the night. So, how did I beat all the bots and snag my copy? I checked their website at about 6 a.m. and I only saw the collector's edition for both the PS4 and the Switch still available at a whopping cost of $260 each. This series, especially these pixelated entries, mean a lot to me personally, making it worthwhile. And these versions, while I do own them digitally, are absolutely fantastic. Once again, huge thanks to Jay for allowing me on to talk about my most expensive game in my game collection. If you like video game content, podcasts, and the like, check out my channel, Inferno Fox Gaming, right here on YouTube.
Hi there everybody, this is David over at the channel David Vink, and thank you so much Cold Knights Gaming for having me on your channel to talk about some expensive JRPGs, and I have quite the collection behind me. I could talk about some things like this that are actually kind of priceless that were given to me by the developers themselves. I have some from Square Enix, some from Atlas, some from various other companies as well. I could also talk about some other games that do come to mind, like Xenosaga 3, or Suikoden 5, or, the 2 copies that I have of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, don't ask me why. Then there's some other esoteric games like Solatorobo Red the Hunter that I have, Dragon Quest V, very expensive, or even Tales of Destiny 2. But none of those games actually hold a candle to the next one that I'm going to be talking about, which is Earthbound. Yeah, this guy, right here, that I ended up getting for Christmas whenever I was in 8th grade. I didn't really even want this game myself, my brother wanted it, but we both completely fell in love with it. It is a fantastic game, and I remember ripping open that cardboard box like a crazy person, looking through that strategy guide and everything else that was in there, and unfortunately, I of course don't have that cardboard box, so it went straight in the trash on Christmas morning, and I don't know what happened to the strategy guide either, but I still do have the game loose. If I had it complete in box, it'd be worth quite the pretty penny, but even loose, this one is still worth more than all those other ones that I talked about earlier. Thank you so much Cold Knights Gaming for having me on, and I do hope to see all of y'all over at my channel David Vink, and I'll see you there. Have a good day, everyone.
As a horror aficionado and avid game collector, you know I had to go with Rule of Rose. The game was released in 2006 to widespread criticism and moral panic. Numerous European countries expressed concern over what they alleged was brutality towards children and youth eroticism. These were vast exaggerations, but combined with the poor reviews the game garnered, left it languishing in Kmart discount bins for $5 or $10. The game follows a group of children who, left to their own devices, form a group called the Red Crayon Aristocrats. Terror, dark themes, and bizarre events unfold. The game is a tough play, not only because of the subject matter, but it just plays slow and clunky, especially compared to its mainline contemporaries like Fatal Frame and Silent Hill. The low print run, combined with the poor sales upon release and a sudden fervent desire for horror and RPG games, as game collecting flourished, made this a monster of a title price-wise. I picked it up pristine many years ago for around $100, which was outrageous at the time. This game now goes for the outlandish price of $655 complete in box, according to price charting. Is it worth that price to play this game? No. It is cool to have, though. Well, that about wraps up our review of the most impressive and expensive games in our collections. What incredible games do you have in your collections? What do you think about these exorbitant prices? Let us know in the comments. I want to wholeheartedly thank each one of my guests in this video. Make sure to subscribe to each and every one of these incredible creators. They'll all be linked in the video description. And of course, drop us a like and subscribe as well if you like what we're doing on the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay creepy.